Good afternoon. Welcome to Between Two Teapots. We are here today with Doug and Julie. I say hi to everybody in chat.
Hello there.
Hello. Hi.
So, oops, I forgot. Let me turn off the volume on that one. Good. Yes. So I think we've got we've got everything. We've got everything set. If you guys notice in the chat that the audio is off or anything like that, just let us know. We can make some tweaks. So Doug and Julie have a long history of tea in the Pacific Northwest, and they're the directors of the Northwest Tea Festival. So they do a lot, and we're really excited for them to take a little time to sit down and have some tea with us this afternoon. We've got I gave them they're pretty close, so I just drove some tea over to their house the other day, and so we're going to start off with some of our Jade Rabbit, and then we're going to switch to a really nice Nilgiri white that they from their personal collection. So if you guys are in the chat, make a note on like what you're drinking. Let us know so that we can kind of all see what's going on. Andrew already said hi. Andrew, the Happy Tea Man. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew.
You guys know Andrew. Everybody in Seattle knows Andrew. And we've got somebody from Halifax drinking some Vietnamese mao cha. That actually sounds really interesting. Great. Okay. Yeah. Tell us about your teaware. How do you guys normally brew tea?
We normally, well, when it's just us
Yeah.
and there's nobody around, we use a Breville tea maker.
Oh, okay.
And that takes and that's, generally that's at breakfast. And that's pretty much what we drink, where we drink most of our tea.
Okay.
And, but when we're doing something like this, or we have people over, then we use a pot like this.
Okay.
And it's more traditional. And of course, we have all of these teapots behind us.
Yeah.
And others.
And others. At one point I counted up 45 teapots.
So when you say traditional, you're talking more about like the European side of traditional
tea brewing? The European side, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
As opposed to the Asian tradition.
Yeah. So many different tea traditions out there. So
that's true.
So what are you doing for the ratios on the tea? How much tea did you put into that pot? What were your?
We put in 5 grams.
5 grams for about 200 milliliters.
Okay. And then you're going to steep that. You're going to steep that longer then.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Like a lot of people, always, I get a lot of questions about what's the right way to brew tea, and a lot of it just comes down to what works.
Yes.
For you, and it's if you find a way to drink it and it makes you happy, then go for it.
Right.
I think
that's basically that has been my philosophy of tea is if it's easy, do it.
Yeah.
And you enjoy it. And if it's too much trouble, don't bother.
I think find
another way.
The British certainly had a very interesting approach in marketing, describing their tea as proper. So yes. proper tea becomes this interesting thing. It's like, well, you know what? There's a lot of
proper ways to do it.
But it's just funny that like quote unquote proper tea like means like kind of a British kind of high tea pot style brew. But
right.
Well,
it's
goes with that mindset.
It goes. Yeah. Yes, it definitely goes with a particular mindset.
But yeah, it's nice because pu'er tea can actually work really well in that capacity as well. I'm going to show off my teaware here in a sec for everybody in the stream. There we go. Andrew is drinking a second flush Darjeeling from Camellia sinensis in Montreal, Canada. Let me turn this around.
Wow,
really?
There we go. Look at this nice little Yixing Duani yellow style clay with some hand carved stuff. Pretty fun teapot that we got as a gift. This is it's actually one of Lamo's teapots, but she doesn't mind me using it. Lucy's a local tea drinker. She says, "Thank you, Doug and Julie, for bringing the Pacific Northwest tea community together." So we'll probably be if you guys are in the Pacific Northwest and you have actually participated in the Pacific Northwest tea community, make a note of that in the chat. And we can pass those comments on. One of the things I really enjoy doing when brewing things gong fu style is smelling the fairness cup, like after you first poured it out, because there's just some really nice. There's like a sweetness in this one that's like reminiscent of like cotton candy or something like that. I don't know. It's just scrumptious for me. And what are you guys doing for teacups? You got some nice teacups too?
We've got tea festival.
Oh,
cups.
of course. Yes. Yes.
What else?
We have a lot of extra.
We have a lot of them.
Yeah, I know. For people who don't know in the chat, there was some interesting challenges in 2019 getting the tea cups to arrive on time. They actually did not arrive on time.
They did not.
And kind of had to make do. But they came after the fact, and a lot of local shops got the cups and were able to give them away for free to customers and things like that. So we have a bunch of them too that we haven't had a chance to give away also. They're really nice cups, and it's one of the nice things about being able to go to the tea festival is that you get a free cup with admission. You can go around and drink as much tea as you want in there.
Yep, and we don't have to worry about paper cups. We're not.
No waste, yeah.
There's no waste, and it works out very nicely. And people can just take their cup up to Crimson Lotus booth and say, "I'd like a taste," and there you go.
It's fun because I can always tell what booth they were at last by what color their cup has been stained. They'll set the cup down, and I'm like, "You guys just drank some matcha, didn't you?" It's just burned green, and so I end up having to wash out a bunch of cups. I'm actually going to be using a fun silver cup, which has a really cool glaze on there. Yeah. We actually work with these silversmiths, the actual ones that we can send them like existing cups, and then they will just form the silver and put it right on there. It's not actually it's actually just a tension fit. So they actually just get it pressed into the right shape and kind of hammer smooth it around, make it go. But
so it's a lining basically.
Yeah, it is. It's it's
nice.
Yeah, no, it actually is. They work really nice.
That's really nice.
You know what? I should jump onto the. Tell you what, I'm gonna jump onto the Northwest Tea Festival train. We'll all be using this. We'll be using the same cups. I've got plenty of time for drinking out of silver. So I'll join you guys. There we go. Nice. So tell me what your guys' history is with tea. I mean, when did you start drinking tea? What kind of tea was it? What's your tea story?
Around 1988, a friend and I, who had been doing social work, decided we wanted to do something different. And we started doing afternoon tea classes. And that was, again, on the European or English style. And we did that, and we did that for a year at a hotel downtown. And and we do a 4-course afternoon tea. And then after about a year of that, we started doing open houses in our kitchens and beginning to sell product. And after a year of that, we found a spot in the Pike Market and opened the Perennial Tea Room.
It's such a good spot.
And yeah, it was a great spot. And we were there for 27 years before we sold it. And during that time, I met and became friends with Norwood Pratt.
Right.
And there was a World Tea, one of the early Take Me to Tea events was in Rhode Island.
Okay.
And so we went to that, and Norwood invited us up to Boston to go to a tea dinner.
Okay.
And we went to a tea dinner there, and it was at a fancy restaurant, and everything had been on the menu had been made with tea, and there was a particular tea that was drunk with it. And when we came back to Washington, I set something up like that at the Pink Door when we had a dinner with Norwood came, and Mark, who had been the instigator in Boston, came, and we had a big event. And after that, Norwood made a comment about, he was in town, he had a day off, and so we had a luncheon with everybody around who was doing tea, and he said, we need to honor the 400th anniversary of the arrival of tea in Amsterdam.
Wow.
And so we said, well, okay, and we'll do a tea festival. I mean, it didn't come out like that, but after talking about it, a group of us decided that we would do this. And the next fall, we had our first tea festival.
And what year was that?
19...
Well, backing up, would have been 08?
2004?
No, 8.
8? Okay, 2008.
Okay.
Or 7, yeah.
It's 2007.
So that was the 400-year anniversary of tea in Amsterdam?
I think the year before was
somewhere around there. That's fascinating.
It took a year to put it all together.
To get together and figure out what we want to do.
And but so that was, and we had it at Seattle Center in the Northwest Rooms, which is now a radio station, and we had it there for several years, and then we moved into another place, and then moved to where we are these days, when we can have one.
Yeah, right.
And so we had 14.
This will be our 13th festival when it happens.
When it happens, it'll be our 13th. So
lucky number 13, I guess, right?
Yes.
Lucky number 13.
Well, I just figure we ought to just skip that, because that was the year. It's like the year the cups didn't arrive. That's the year we didn't have a festival, and so now we're on to the 14th. This will be the 15th.
No.
Next year.
No.
Just jump straight past it.
Okay, it'll still be 13, but I could skip it.
Yeah, I could see that, like they do in elevators.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, so for people in
this
chat,
is a nice tea.
oh, thank you so much. It'll be interesting to do like a compare and contrast between the teas, because so yours, the one that you've got for us, that's like single origin, single garden, like single year, single production. This one is a custom blend that we put together. This has multiple decades, multiple mountains, multiple areas, and the interesting thing for us with this was we had to work specifically to find a factory that would be willing to blend on a per cake basis. So every single cake of this we sell, that 200 grams, has the exact ratios of the blend that we intended, and it was a bit of work, because they don't like it's just a lot of extra work for the people that are pressing the cakes to take it and stuff like that.
They look at you and say, but that means more work.
Yeah, and I'm like, but it also means that I can pay you more if you just tell me how much it costs to do the extra work. And so then they do the math, and it was like $1 extra per cake or something like that. And I was like, oh, I can handle that, or something in that capacity. But it still was like they do everything in China by the number of human operations per kilo of tea, and if there are if you're doing, for example, like if you're pressing like a 1 kilo brick, that's not a lot of human operations. But if you're pressing like 50-gram bricks or 50-gram cakes or something, now that's 20 human operations per kilo or whatever like that. And so that stuff, it starts to add up, and then it just takes more time. It's all just it's just tea spreadsheet problems, tea business problems and stuff. But, so this just, even though there were 5 cakes, so 5 pressing operations, the fact that I was adding in blending of it instead of them just being able to grab it meant they had to have a scale there and be particular and stuff like that. But it was it actually turned out really well, and I enjoyed how this tea turned out.
Very nice.
Lucy in the chat she's a big fan of Jade Rabbit, and so she's very excited that we're drinking Jade Rabbit today. So yeah, I was going to talk about the Perennial Tea Room and Pike Place Market for people in the chat that don't know about Seattle and the Pike Place Market. The Pike Place Market has been there as long as Seattle has been there, and Pike Place Market is like one of the original, farmer markets in the Northwest and in the Seattle area, and it's just so steeped in Seattle history. I really enjoy the market, and about a block from the Perennial Tea Room, that was Starbucks' first shop as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so when did Starbucks open that one? That was
in the must have been around the 80s or 80s, right? Yeah, right around just before we opened.
Okay.
Because they were there when we opened.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, talk about really interesting piece of Seattle history, like just happening, like being right there is kind of cool. And so your guys, the Perennial Tea Room is in this like adorable little alley that's part of the whole market structure right there.
Yeah.
And it's one of those like little hidden gem things, because I love just exploring down that alley and seeing what new little shops and stuff are around. That must have been a I don't know. I think that's a really cool spot to run a little tea shop. So.
Oh, we thought it was a really cool spot too. We were just walking through the market because we wanted a place that would have tourists in the summer when everybody in Seattle was out hiking, and then have the locals in the winter. And so the market seemed to fit that bill. And we're walking down Post Alley, and there was a for rent sign, and we thought, we can't afford it. B, it isn't really for real. And we called, and within a week we had it. It was really fast. It was just meant to be. It's
such a great little spot, and it's kind of hard to explain that to people that haven't been in Seattle and know what the market is and know that spot and stuff. But so I used to work at Real Networks. Real Networks is down on the waterfront down there, and so I would get on the bus up here in Linwood, and it would drop me off like right at the market. I would actually stop in the tea and crumpet shops. I'd get a little tea, I'd grab some crumpets, I'd have some breakfast, like sitting on the street, and then I'd walk down through the market and down to the waterfront and go to work. And so that was my official tradition for a really long time. And I love being in the market like super early in the morning. Like seeing things like start to wake up. All the flower sellers are out there packing their stuff up. All the little people are jostling for who gets what booth that day, and the fish are starting to fly and things. Such a very romantic Seattle image, the whole like market thing. And so
it really is great.
That's pretty awesome that you guys were able to do that for so long.
And it's still there.
Yeah. So the Perennial Tea Room has new ownership, and still taking advantage of the heavy tourism, because all the cruise boats like stop just right down there, and then everybody gets out, and I'll go up to the Post Alley there and the whole market. So it's, a lot of fun. I've got a lot of fun market memories. I really like that place. Andrew Goodman with a note from the Wikipedia. The Pike Place Starbucks store, commonly called the original Starbucks, was established in 1971. So actually a little bit.
Andrew.
Thank you to Andrew with the quick Googling. So a lot of people really think of Seattle as a coffee town, and rightfully so. What was it like trying to build a tea community so early on when everything else was coffee?
It was very interesting. When we started, we thought we were going to be primarily selling teapots.
Okay.
And because that's what people seem to be interested in. But what we found was people would come in and they'd say, "Do you have this kind of a tea?" And we would say no if we didn't have it. And then we'd research it, and then we'd get it.
Nice.
And ultimately, we ended up being a tea shop, not a teapot shop.
Gotcha.
And it took some adjusting on our part, but it wasn't really hard. If you do what your customers want, you're going to be more successful.
Yeah.
And it worked really well. And we ended up having over 100 teas that we sold.
You had 185 when you sold the business.
See,
different teas.
Other people besides me paid attention to that. And but in the beginning, people were always interested in tea. And that was the fascinating thing. It didn't matter that coffee was around and that everybody drank it. Tea was still something that people wanted because it didn't amp you up.
Yeah.
It was in the same way. It was a relaxing kind of process. And people don't drink tea on the go. They don't, take a cup of coffee, like you take a cup of coffee and you walk down the street with it. You don't do that with tea. You sit down, you have a cup, and you relax a bit and think about what your next steps are going to be, and then move on. But and people want that. And so we found that we were quite successful after a while.
So did you guys do tea preparation there as well, or was it just selling?
We started out just selling bulk teas and prepackaged teas, and then we got some carafes that we would brew tea in the back of the shop, and then, give out, we'd have a tea that we brewed every day, and then we'd give everybody a sample when they came in. And then ultimately, we started brewing tea to order.
Tea to go.
People could come in and they could order a particular kind of tea, and we would prepare a cup for them. We'd have hot water. We'd have 4 teas that we brewed a day, and they could have one of those, or we would brew them whatever they wanted. That worked really nicely.
And some people sat and drank it there, others took it to go. So,
nice.
They did both. Yeah. We had a couple of tables and some chairs, and people could sit down, and other people would just come in and get it in a to-go cup and then take off.
Yeah, it was interesting that you noted how you had to be flexible for your business to be successul.
Yeah.
We have to do this. We have to do the same thing. If customer comes and they want something and it's inside of the sphere of what we can provide, like we try to do that. We get a lot of I don't know. I'm sure in your time in the tea business as well, a lot of people will come in and be like, "Oh man, it must be like great, like being able to run a tea business and just sit around drinking tea all day." And it's there's more to it than that.
Yeah, a lot more to go. It's like there weren't many days where I just sat around drinking tea all day.
Yeah, same for us.
Yeah.
So it's
like. Yeah, it's got to take the inventory, see how much I have of this. And I have to do, being surprised when somebody says, I want this much of a particular tea, and finding out that you really don't have it, even when you thought you did.
Yeah.
And inventory's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's those little things,
Yeah, we have interesting issues managing, because we have an inventory in China and we have an inventory here. And so our site is kind of split. People can buy from both inventories, or they can buy from just one, or they can buy from Seattle or something. And trying to manage large scale inventory on different countries in different languages is also an interesting challenge. Those are the things that a lot of people don't realize. When you're running a tea business, or when you're running any business, I mean, the reality is, if you're not focused on the business, it can really quickly become a very expensive hobby. And
yes,
or you won't be there.
Yeah, and it'll get away from you.
Yeah. Exactly. And it can happen very 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 quickly. So 185 teas, is that the
right around that, and those were the ones that we sold in bulk, and then we had another 50 or 60 that were prepackaged that we sold, because people wanted those as well.
Yeah, no, that's that was one of the things that we were thinking about when we were starting on doing our business, whether we would try to be a broadly based, or tightly focused. And so we decided to kind of go the tightly focused route, and just literally focus on one tea, one area. And for us, I felt like Yunnan and pu'er was in itself so incredibly diverse that I could spend a long time just focusing on that. And but lately we're branching out a little bit into the Yunnan black teas. Still sticking in with the Yunnan, but probably going to be pressing some Yunnan black teas today, which are this year.
Yunnan black teas are absolutely wonderful.
I love them.
I love them. They're one of my favorites.
And we've seen a development of sophistication, or asking for other things other than Earl Grey and all the flavor teas and so forth. Over this time period, we saw that. Well, Julie saw that in her shop, and we've seen that in the festival. Yeah. In what people were coming to the festival looking for, and what their background is. In the past decade, this area has gotten a lot more sophisticated in teas, people's knowledge, and therefore what they want to drink and how they want to drink, what styles of brewing and et cetera, and the whole culture has really evolved quite a bit.
Right, and the kinds of workshops that people want. That there was the last couple of years of the festival, everything was pu'er.
Well, it went in waves. Yeah.
It would go in waves, but people would would come in looking for particular kinds of teas, and people like yourself and some other places were just having a wonderful time because people really wanted to see all the variety of teas that they had.
Well, it's interesting because you actually had to, you have to have quality examples of something before people are going to be into it. And so so what was it? I think so we actually I think we started our business in 2013, but it was too late for us to actually go to the festival. So we volunteered. So my wife and I volunteered on the first year. And so since we wanted to kind of stay together as a couple, they let us help out in the big room. And so we got to work with James Norwood Pratt and stuff like that. And so really it was like an information gathering weekend for us. I mean, we were volunteering and helping out, but at the same time just trying to figure out like the market. And there was not much, hardly any pu'er tea there at all. And one of the things I noticed is so he's James has his like around the world like mini tea sommelier course, right? And so every you kind of go through like white teas and black teas and kind of work your way around, try them all.
Right.
Yeah. There were a bunch of people. They'd paid like a decent amount of money to actually like sit in that class, and so they're very passionate about tea. They're sitting there drinking all of them. Half of them flat out refused pu'er. Like as soon as I brought the pu'er pot around, they're like, "Oh, is that pu'er?" They're like, "No," and I'm just like, "Really? I mean, you didn't even want to try it." And so I realized then like there's a huge education gap in the U.S. on pu'er tea, and I think that comes from a lot of poor quality pu'er tea, like being exported from China in, like the 80s and the 90s. And I think it gave people some really bad impressions on what pu'er tea is. And so, like we knew like first off, like people have to be able to, they've got to know that there is good pu'er tea out there first. So that was a big challenge for us in the beginning.
Yeah. The first pu'er tea I drank tasted like dirt.
Yeah.
And it's only in you're putting a white tea in?
Yeah, well,
okay. It's only over the years that I've discovered that that's not what it tastes like, that there are lots of other pu'er tastes, and they're really lovely and subtle. And but in the beginning, what we got was something that was really harsh.
Yeah. No, I know exactly that. I've heard that story from so many people. They're like, "Oh yeah, I never drink pu'er tea. Pu'er tea just tastes like dead fish at the bottom of a dirty lake." It's just like I know the tea that you tried, but like let me brew you something else. And so, like you mentioned, you got started kind of like hosting little tea tastings in your house with, like friends and family and stuff like that. We did exactly the same thing. So in 2013, that's the year that Lamo and I got married. And that's the year that I discovered pu'er tea, and her family was just like, "Oh, okay, well, you like pu'er tea? Like, well, here's your wedding present." And they sent like a couple tomes of something that they just happened to have sitting around the house. And so like, I'm like, shoot, let's start doing like tea tastings for my friends and like showing them like Gong Fu style. And at the same time, it was also just kind of doing like mini market research. Like, is it just me that likes this tea, or is there like other people? And so once I was able to find out that there were other people, that did like that tea, as long as it was, like quality tea and prepared right. So we were like, well, shoot, let's do this, Lamo. Let's try it. Let's try and start a business. That was as much. In hindsight, you're just like, man, what were we? I don't know if I would have.
It's like, what were we thinking?
I don't know if I would have been so bold. Just being like, hey, well, let's just start a business on something we know nothing about, and then let's just go to China and figure it out. But it worked. And we made it work. And then we went to the Northwest Tea Festival next year as vendors, which was very exciting. And that's been an interesting process as well, trying to learn how to run a booth efficiently. How to get your product in, how to organize your product, how to sell the product, how to get your product out. I'm sure you guys remember like the first year, like I was I think we were the last vendor to set up, and we were the last vendor out of there. And I think Doug's just sitting there with his clock. It's just like, we're closing up the doors, guys. And I'm like, but I brought so much stuff. We brought way too much stuff that first year. So much stuff, and that was pretty funny. So we've learned over the years to kind of be a little bit more efficient in how the booth is set up and presented, and not literally bringing everything we sell, but bringing like a certain set of things and focusing on these teas. Kind of like when you go to a restaurant and they've got like, what's the special of the day or something. Special of the day just happens to be what they have a whole bunch of that day, and so they kind of work you towards it. So trying to do the same thing in the festival, focusing more on individual interactions and drinking tea with people and talking to people and telling stories and kind of building that, which is which is a lot of fun. And that's one thing that I haven't been able to do with the whole COVID thing.
Yes.
So,
yeah. And plus that's educational. It's not just, it's a lot of fun and you're talking to people, but you're also telling them one-on-one. And usually you're not one-on-one. I've seen your booth and there's 5 people standing around you while you're talking to maybe one person about something, but they're all listening.
Yeah.
And you're giving them information that they can't get anywhere else. And they'll go away and they may not remember all of it, they'll remember some of it. And then they'll come back and they'll go around, and sometimes they'll do it even at the festival. They'll go around and they'll do all the tasting, and then they'll come back to 1 or 2 places and say, this is what I want, after having checked it all out. Yeah. And I think that's a great educational process that we provide by having a space where people can come together and drink tea.
No, absolutely. Like that, the amount of like tea education and knowledge that happens in the, how many hours is the festival open in a weekend? Is it 10, 12? I mean, what is it? So
10 to 6 and 10 to 4. Right. So that's what, 12, 14 hours.
12 or 14 hours. Yeah, like that's hardly any time at all. But the amount of knowledge and education that is disseminated through those like 2 short days is you can't get that anywhere else.
And it's education on the floor from all the booths, and not to mention the tea bar, but from all the booths, and then whatever specificity goes on in the workshops and in the presentations and the rest of the program. I mean, it's an incredible amount of information.
Yeah, it is. And that's, I did enjoy the first year when we actually had a chance to volunteer, because then we were actually able to participate as well and learn. As soon as we have a booth, like, it's done. Like, I mean, my goal there at that point in time is to sell. I got to sit down. I got to sell some tea. I got my wife, the accountant, standing right behind me. She's like, got to sell some tea.
But successful selling involves education. I mean, you have to educate people, and I think the shops and businesses that are the most successful are the ones that invest in that, because you have a more educated customer that will know the quality of what you're producing or offering. And so that was really a major component of the Perennial Tea Room. And that's when we started the festival and got people together. There was a collective decision that education was the primary. I mean, that's the goal. That's goals. It. In all forms, about tea,
and the culture and everything related to it. And it doesn't matter whether it's herbs or tea or black or white or green or yellow or pu'er or whatever, it's tea. And that's our bottom line. If it's about tea, you can be there.
Yeah. Right. I myself, I just love learning things, right? And if I learn something interesting, I want to share something interesting. And I've been so fascinated with not just the world of tea, but specifically for me, the world of pu'er, because like I've never got to the point where I even came close to feeling like I knew it all. Like there's always just so much more, and so I'm always like so excited to be able to share things. One of the things I've noticed, specifically online, is that now early on, 2013, 14, 15, I was, like super active in Reddit and some of the, like online tea communities. And I would always be answering questions. People would come out like with a pu'er tea question. I would like I'd be there and I'd be answering question. I don't have to do that anymore. Like everybody else, they answer the questions already. And so I'm like, it's really good to see like the global tea community becoming much more just helpful and even just knowledgeable themselves.
Knowledgeable, right. So now you're becoming the grand old man of tea, and people will come to you to be their pu'er gurus.
Yeah, my beard is quickly starting to show that. I don't know if that's the stress of running a tea business or kids or marriage or what, but I imagine that I'll well, yeah, the older I get and the whiter my beard gets, the more the more it looks like I know what I'm talking about with tea, right? Just come this quickly become this wizened old like Zen Dog. I'm gonna look like Zen Dog in probably like 5 or 10 years or something like that, which entertains me. But so it's not easy running a tea festival.
No, it takes a lot of people.
We talked about this a little bit with the Dawsons. I mean the tea festival is 3 days out of the year. There's a day of prep, and then there's 2 days that people are there. But that's all that the public sees. I mean, you guys work every month.
Yes, we do. Pretty much. We start in January, and the festival is at the end of September, so that's 9 months. And by the end of the year, sometime in November, I'm paying the rent for the next year's event, so that we will have it, and then we start again in January.
Just describe like what the rough year of a tea festival looks like, so that people can kind of get an idea of that.
Well, we have been fortunate to have it in the same location, Seattle Center, every year. So somewhere on that campus, we have had a festival every year. And for the last several years, it's all been in the exhibition hall.
Right.
And so we have that in place. By the time the festival closes, we know we're going to be there the next year.
But that takes coordination with like the Seattle Center on like availability and like how big the room's going to be and how much there's
and it means that they need to pay attention and make sure that on their calendar they have us in the last weekend in September, because that's what we tell everybody. That's our weekend.
Yeah.
And so in January, we start having a monthly committee meeting, and there's about 14. Anywhere from 12 to 15 people that are involved. And we set up committees, and and then I start emailing everybody who was a vendor the year before and say, are you coming back? This is what you need to do. And then I go outside that and find other people who haven't been there, and I invite them to participate. I also I'll go to the World Tea Expo and greet people there and tell them about the festival and encourage them to consider coming. But that's in May or June. So in January, we start this process. By February or March, we're beginning to get responses of vendors, exhibitors, and then we're into the program committee, which is Charles and Lori and Doug and a couple of other people, and they are contacting all the vendors and other people who have done presentations and saying, do you want to participate again this year? What would you like to do? How much time do you need? How much space? Do you need us to brew tea for you? What do you need? And that begins to happen. And in the meantime, we have a graphic artist who's putting together some save the date cards so that we can start handing them out, and a poster so that we can put them up around town. And And
the,
then
the poster art over the years is one of the really exciting things. I actually really like the poster art.
It's wonderful. We've just been so fortunate to have this woman in Portland who volunteers her time and does this wonderful job for us.
So I'm trying to think if I had a card around here, because you guys have them in like little ones and stuff like that. I'm sure I do somewhere around here. Show off some of the art.
Save the date cards over there, I think. Anyway, but so by June, we have close to a full program.
Yeah.
And we have, and at that point, we also have a full set of vendors, exhibitors.
Yeah, we try to get our reservation in as early as possible, because we know it fills up. It's
yeah. And so once we have that, then it's a matter of putting all the booths down and figuring out who's going to be where. And that's one piece that can take up to a month. And in the meantime, the program is coming together. And as the program comes together, then we need to get the posters printed. We passed out save the date cards to all the vendors. We've sent them off. And posters, save the date cards go to all the vendors and exhibitors. And then it's what else? Then once the program comes together, then we have to get that put on paper in a way that's readable.
Physical program.
A physical program.
There's lots of details at the beginning. It's just sort of regrouping and trying to figure out what needs to be done when, and set deadlines for that, and managing that.
So we've done,
as we get closer and closer.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Oh, I was just, you were talking about, the physical organization and the booths and things.
Yes.
I thought one of the things that was particularly a challenge that other festivals don't have is like the really high power requirements that actually have to go to each booth.
Yes.
It's people don't realize like how much electricity it takes to run a giant kettle at every single booth in an entire thing. That's not an easy electrical setup. We did the Christmas in Seattle holiday gift fair one year. They're definitely not like tea or coffee focused. It was more like gift focused and things. We thought we'd give it a try. It was much greater hassle trying to brew tea in that building than it is at the festival that you guys put together. Like the amount of money that they wanted to charge to run power to the booth to like run my kettle. I mean, like they were charging like per amp, and it would have been like $1,500 just to run power to the booth for the weekend. And I'm like, are you? Oh man. So we actually ended up having to like bring like a little gas powered one or something like that. But then the fire department was upset that I was just like having fire in the building. It's like so many things go into that people don't realize. And so
and we deal with the fire department and we tell the fire department people are going to have tea lights.
Yeah.
Is that going to be okay? And they say, well, it has to be this far away from anything that's flammable, and they come and they check, and
as well they should. I mean, that's a huge concern. You got a big
absolutely.
Giant room of people, one or two exits, a fire, things can happen really, really quickly. And so these are all just things that people don't realize, because in general, like things, I mean, you guys put together such a successful festival that people don't see that behind the scenes stuff. It just
the devil is in the details.
Absolutely.
The thing, but it takes a lot of attention and a lot of people. I mean, not just us. I mean, we have a large group, and we couldn't do it. There was one festival, because of circumstances, the core group dropped down to about 3, maybe 4 people. And
we were exhausted at the end of it.
It was almost impossible to do because of so much. There's so many little details that you have to do. And
no, I mean, you have
to have it all together. It's like a circus. You show up and put on a show, and then you take down your tents, you're gone. same thing. It happens very quickly, and you've got to have everything.
But you have to have everything
in
ready
place.
to go, or it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, we get a lot of messages from customers and stuff that are in different places in the world or even different places in the U.S. and they're like, "Man, there's nothing like that around where I am. What do I have to do to get one?" And I'm like, "You got to do a lot of work, man. If you want to set up your own tea festival, it is a lot of work. It's doable. I mean, every tea festival starts off somehow, but you just got to know that it's that is a lot of work. Oolong Owl is in the chat. You guys know Shar.
Yes.
She wants to know what is the story with the big yellow teapot?
Big yellow teapot.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Well, the big yellow teapot
belonged to
a shop down
in
Olympia.
Olympia.
Interesting.
The tea lady, yeah.
Right. And they brought it to. They were exhibiting vendors for a number of years, and then they
brought that with them every year.
And this was a pot outside, or essentially a logo outside their shop down in Olympia, and then ultimately, for many reasons, they ended up closing that shop.
Well, she retired.
Yeah, she retired, and
they didn't want to sell the shop.
Right. So they closed it, and they gave us the
big yellow teapot.
And you'll notice on the teapot, as courtesy of Tea Lady.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, well, it's very tiny. It's right there. It's a little postscript.
But it is there,
Right.
and
I refurbished
it a bit and
painted it yellow.
And well, I think it was yellow, wasn't it?
No,
okay,
it's white.
It was white. All right. So anyway, we painted it yellow and put it on a stand, and kids loved it.
Oh yeah.
Kids absolutely loved it, and we had it outside for a couple of years when it was good weather.
It's just fiberglass, right? Just
yeah.
It's a styrofoam base, and it's fiberglass outside. Yeah.
It's such a fun thing. It's big too for people who don't know. It's a big yellow teapot.
It's 4.5 feet wide, and almost 4 feet tall. So
as soon as that's out on the sidewalk, then people know that the tea festival's in town.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
That was its intent.
That was, and it was also interesting to me the number of people who in Seattle who still don't know that there's a tea festival. Even like locals will be like, like walking by, they're like, "There's a tea festival in Seattle," and then they come in, and then they come and sit down and have tea with us, and then like turns out like they're huge tea people, and they're like, "I was just walking through the Seattle Center. I'm like, I didn't know there was," and I saw the teapot. It's just like, wow, that's it's just super cool to be able to see that. People can just still find it right there like that.
Yeah,
right.
And it's always amazing to me that people who are super tea people don't know about it, miss it somehow. So there must be shops that aren't getting the save the date cards.
Right.
We'll have to explore that.
We've got a handful of customers that only buy from us at the tea festival, and they're also local. And they're like, "Oh man, I've been waiting months for the tea festival." I'm like, you can just drive over to my house and I'll sell you the tea. And they're like, "Well, I know, but I want to get it at the festival." I'm like, "Okay, I get that. That's kind of a fun thing." Actually, I thought it would be a fun idea. You know how they do those like inflatable T-Rex costumes? Have you seen those? Like an inflatable teapot costume with people like running around at the festival that weekend, I think would be hilarious. Like holding up a little sign like, "Come drink tea" or something like that. I don't know how much it would take to actually build an inflatable teapot costume, but I just thought that would be a fun way to bring in some extra stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
So last year we couldn't do the tea festival, could we?
No. That was a real disappointment.
Right. And unfortunately, this year we're also going to have to postpone. It was a very difficult decision by the committee.
Yeah.
And it basically came down to us asking ourselves, would we go to a large event inside in the end of September? And
given the way the COVID stuff is right now,
situation is, and we were going to be able to actually hold the festival. Seattle Center has canceled everything. They are slowly going to begin to start fourth quarter. So in October. So
they counted us as part of the fourth quarter.
They said that we could do it and we'd be their first event.
Wow.
And which was great. However,
none of us would have gone.
Yeah.
Well, we just couldn't, we couldn't figure a way to really, one, keep people safe.
Yeah.
And maintain some version of what the other festivals were like.
Yeah.
And the other side of it is we were sure that attendance would be very down.
Yeah.
So there was an issue of, you know, would we have enough money to be around the next year to put another festival on?
And vendors wouldn't, if the attendance was down, vendors wouldn't have as good a show, and vendors might decide not to come for all the same reasons we were considering not going.
And we would have had different, I mean, we fly people in quite literally from all over the country, in some cases internationally, to do presentations and a part of the program. We wouldn't be able to do that. A lot of the people we would have, we know are not traveling and wouldn't be traveling by then. So
yeah, I know it's such a hard decision. And I mean, I think other festivals may have a different approach because they're not like focused on consumption. But like if you're sitting there like drinking tea intimately, I mean, if people have been to the tea festival, you guys know that I bring this tea table with. So that means that there's like 3 or 4 people standing right there. There's like a crowd in my booth, and if you're drinking tea, like your mask is off, and so it. You know, we haven't even done any tea tastings in our home for anyone.
Right.
The idea of us.
Imagine doing that 6 feet apart. It just is not going to work.
Yeah, especially like, you know, in an indoor, you know, like building where largely, even with a relatively decent ventilation system, everybody's more or less smelling the same air, you know, and so it's But
you can't have 3,500 people, you know, in the same space and have it, you know, be safe given what's going on. So
and it's a funny thing because you think about, like, you know, people are like, oh well, it doesn't make sense, it's a big building. You know, it's a big building, but I can guarantee you I know exactly who's making chai in the morning. Like it can be 30 booths over, but like as soon as they start boiling that pot in the morning, like if I can smell their tea, you know, I can smell their COVID. You know,
but we're reasonably certain that we're going to be able to do this next year. And what are the dates?
Yeah, we have the slots already. They're the 24th and 25th of next year.
For September?
Of September, those slots are reserved at Seattle Center at the exhibition hall. And
all right, you guys put that on your calendars. Everybody that was waiting for the next tea festival.
We as a group are still functioning. We are exploring with trying to do some things, limited things around the end of September. We haven't come up with specific plans.
We've got a lot of different ideas we're playing with, like having a tea week, you know, and giving people, having them download a map of all the tea shops, tea vendors in the area, and go around to everybody during that week. We don't know yet. We're working on it. Go to the Northwest Tea Festival website.
NorthwestTeaFestival.com. Yep, I got a link in the description of this for anybody that's curious about that.
And we will have information there. And
it'll be another month or two.
It'll be another month before it's up, but started. But we'll have it, and we'll let everybody know.
I'd throw in the suggestion of trying to do some interesting live stream stuff. I have had so much fun doing these like little live stream videos. It's putting it up on YouTube. YouTube makes it so easy. It's really it's been really therapeutic for us to be able to connect with our customers and other people and feel like we're actually like drinking. I mean, it really feels like you guys are actually just sitting right here having tea with us, which is funny because I don't think we've ever actually sat down and had tea together. Because every time I see you, like you guys got a ton of stuff to do. So we're working on setting up our booth. You guys are bouncing around. We usually get to say like hi once a year, but we've never actually had the chance to kind of sit down.
Right.
And
neither of us have ever gone to the Northwest Tea Festival.
We're always running around,
working in the background.
Yeah, Andrew said you guys work 13 months a year on the tea festival. So, speaking of tea, let's switch over to the white tea. So I'm very very excited to try. I don't drink a lot of white tea. So. I'm going to be brewing it in this teapot here. This is one that Mark Moeller made. He was actually he's a potter, worked from Seattle for a while, and then he trained in Taiwan, and now he's living in Philadelphia, I think, still doing cool teaware. So I'm going to see what the white white tea does in that. But tell us about this the white tea that you guys have.
When we went to India 2 years ago to go to a series of to a series of tea plantations in Nilgiri and Darjeeling.
Okay.
And we were there for about 2 weeks.
Almost 3 weeks.
Almost 3 weeks.
Wow.
Anyway, and when we were in the Nilgiri region, and there were about 15 of us on the tour, including all the people who were helping out and making, all the people in the background, making sure that we got on the buses and got where we were supposed to be. So one of the places we went was the Korakunda estate. And they do a really nice black Nilgiri tea that I was familiar with because I sold it at the Perennial Tea Room.
Oh, nice.
And when and I had no idea that they did white tea. And when we got there, we saw this, and Nigel Milliken told us that it was one of the best white teas he'd ever had.
Wow.
So we bought some and brought it home, and this is
The last of it.
the last of it. And we have enjoyed it tremendously. It's a lovely white tea, and it's not something I expect from India. It's, I expect white tea more from China.
Yeah.
And
Yunnan's
those
doing
are
a lot of white
wonderful
tea
as
now
well.
too.
But I was very impressed with this, and
Show the people
we
this
liked
tree
it a
here.
lot.
Yeah.
So that's its story.
There we go. This is one of the benefits of a fisheye lens. I love that. I can just throw that right up there and let people see things.
Yes.
So this was from 2018, you said?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So nice little bit of an aged,
And I don't
aged
know.
white tea.
An aged white. Yeah.
Temperature wise, like I don't do a lot of white tea. What temperature would you guys recommend for this? Do you guys generally brew it hot, or how do you guys do?
185.
Okay.
Thereabouts.
Okay. All right. I'll
Just below boiling.
Okay. All right. I'll go with that then. So, yeah, there is a decent. Go ahead.
Do it the same way. Do it in Gangfu style, and just do it the same way you would do your pu'er, only
just a little cooler.
Cooler water.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. I will.
Yeah.
I'll do that. Yeah, we do. So they're doing a lot of white tea in Yunnan now as well, and all of it comes from the, Camellia sinensis assamica, the large leaf varietal, and it's really popular. I mean, a pressed cake of white tea just looks so gorgeous. I mean, like those leaves always just look so nice, especially like a nice bud heavy one. They're just gorgeous when they're pressed. I don't know what it is. Like we go to different mountains and we're exploring, like different teas, like we try the Dian Hong, the Yunnan blacks that they have. I always love the Yunnan blacks. I love the sheng. I love the show. I don't know what it is. I've never really found in Yunnan like a white tea that really grabbed me. And I'm assuming it's just my palate, because I know there's a lot of people that really like the Yunnan white tea. So we'll see what this one does. I'm excited to try.
Well, it's also the people who are making it and the
That's true.
What they're doing, and that's one thing that was really even more clear when we were doing and being able to see all the various factories and the people making the tea, that it is an art form. Certainly, it's human created product.
Yes.
It's a vegetable product, but it's transformed by human hands, and
it's just amazing.
And it's different.
Yep.
I mean, different by different people, and because we were at some of the factories, we were able to actually in Korakunda, we were able to taste teas from different parts of their plantations, and was very impressed with the variation from plot to plot.
So how many tea growing areas have you guys had the chance to go to?
Pretty much just in India.
Just in India, in Nilgiri and Darjeeling, and we went to 4 or 5 places in Nilgiri and 3 or 4 in Darjeeling.
Right. So our ability to travel in the tea growing areas has been pretty limited, actually.
Well, they're really far away.
Well, it turns out
they
they're
are.
far away, and so we've
And not only far away, once you get there, they're still hard to get to.
Yeah. You know, we get we talk to a lot of customers about that, and about the idea of like, hey, like I would do tea tours. Andrew in the chat, Andrew has actually traveled with us in Yunnan. We took him around for a couple weeks to try and just trying to think about doing that at scale, like even with like a small group of people, like 4 or 8 or 10 or something like that. Man, that is an incredible amount of work to put together, and finding hotels and food and like interesting dietary things. And I'm not sure how it was in India, but like the sanitation infrastructure in Yunnan is not so great. You're going to be
no, and that's true for India.
I imagine it was.
And and again, it's running a tea tour is very much like running a festival. You don't get to participate in the tour. You're just there to make sure everybody gets from point A to point B in one piece.
Yeah, 3 days before we arrived in Darjeeling, the hotel that we were booked into went bankrupt. So we
we never knew it.
We didn't know it. I mean,
we didn't hear about this until after the fact, when we were complaining about the hotel, and poor Raj practically burst into tears and said, but they just went bankrupt. It would have been different.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, China has some interesting rules about foreigners in hotels and stuff. There's like, foreigners aren't allowed in hotels like under 3 or 4 stars or something like that. So there's all sorts of interesting challenges. Usually it's, obviously in those hotels are also a lot more expensive. Thankfully Lamu generally goes in and she's Chinese, she orders the room, and then I come out and they're like, oh, wait a minute, like there's a foreigner, like we could have charged more. And so it's kind of funny how that kind of works. This has some really nice aromas. It's kind of got like a bit of a spicy hint to it. Is that something that you guys get?
Isn't it nice?
Yeah, no, that's that was a little bit of a surprise.
Subtle.
Yeah.
Very subtle.
Yeah. Fun. Very fun.
And if you're used to something like heavier teas, like a pu'er or a black, the first time you have a white, very often you're not going to taste anything because your palate isn't awake to it.
Maybe we should have done the white tea first.
No, this is just fine. But it's one of it again. It's all about education. You learn by tasting what works for you, and you have to taste a lot of it before your mouth gets used to it. You don't just say, "Oh, I like this" right off. You have to taste it several times in several different styles to figure out, to get your taste accommodated to it, I think is the word.
So we probably, like, if I had to think about, like the amount, so a lot of our tea tasting isn't necessarily for pleasure, which is one of the reasons I've enjoyed doing all of these like live streams, because I can actually sit down and kind of have a fun tea tasting. Most of the tea tastings that Lamo and I have to do are more analytical from a tea purchasing perspective. We've got to sit down and like drink it, like have multiple sessions and try them in different ways and gauge the quality and stuff. So I'd probably say like nine out of the 10 teas that we drink in a given year aren't even worth considering for purchase. What did you find over your years in the running a tea shop, like the number of teas you had to try versus like how many you actually chose to sell?
It's pretty close to that. It's at least close to 9 out of 10. Just were run of the mill kind of things. And if we were going for something special, we had to just wait and be patient and figure that it would show up. And ultimately it did. But it takes a lot of tasting. Yeah.
And that also kind of goes back into the frame of mind for a lot of our customers who think that we just sit around drinking tea all day. Well, we even if we do, it might not be the tea that you want to sit around and drinking tea all day. I've drank many pour.
And drinking, tasting, and spitting is very different than drinking it
For pleasure.
for pleasure.
Yeah, you have to get really efficient. You can't spend an hour drinking a tea to choose whether you want it or not. You have to find, especially if you've got, for us in springtime, like we're getting tons of samples. Every farmer that I've ever talked to that we've got a WeChat connection with, it's funny, they don't remember Lamu, but they remember like. My nickname is the American Big Beard Boss. Like they remember American Big Beard Boss. That's what they mentioned to Lamu. Lamu will message them and like, "Who are you?" And then she's like, "Yeah, I'm with the American Big Beard Boss." They're like, "Oh right, yeah, we love that guy. We'll send you guys some samples." And so when we're inundated with hundreds and hundreds of samples, like in a spring, and you got to sit there and like plow through them. Yeah, you got to get efficient. You got to have a method.
Yes. Either that, or you'll get tea drunk, or you'll get so overloaded that you can't do it.
Yeah.
And you won't know the difference after a while.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you have to pace yourself. Here's a good question in chat. And yeah, if you guys have any questions in chat, if you're in the chat, if you're sitting at home drinking tea, I got questions about tea festivals, Pacific Northwest tea culture, tea business, anything. Drop them in the chat, and we'll get to them. Oxydope Tea wants to know if you have a favorite water for brewing tea at home. What do you guys do for water?
Well, it depends on where you're at.
water is crucial.
Right. I mean, we're Seattle. We're blessed with pretty decent water in our own, with just out of the tap. We run it through a basic filter.
Okay.
And to take the chlorine out.
Take the chlorine and some basic things out. But there are parts of the country where we've gone and tried to brew tea using local water, which basically in some cases was almost impossible. Our daughter and son-in-law and granddaughter live in Wisconsin, and their water is
terrible.
Hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And trying to get any kind of a flavor that would withstand that water is pretty much impossible. So
this is actually another interesting challenge from a tea festival perspective. I mean, because you guys actually provide all the water for every single cup of tea that's brewed in a 2 or 3 day window, and that's tell people what you guys the process you guys go through for making sure the water's good.
We've over the years have worked with various people, and we've been working with a guy who's now down in LA, who is essentially his job is water. He provides filtration systems and so forth for coffee shops and others.
And for tea shops and for tea festivals.
And we have some basic filtering equipment. Again, Seattle water is pretty good.
Yeah.
That we just need to run through some filters to correct a few things, and we get that from him. In other locations, he has to filter the water so hard, so thoroughly with reverse osmosis that essentially he takes everything out of the water
and then he
puts back certain trace minerals and so forth to.
That's interesting. So this is a service that this person provides to beverage festivals or events.
That's his business.
That's
pretty cool.
Business. And we've gotten to know him over the years through being at various things like World Tea Expo and
the LA Tea Festival,
larger events. Yeah. And so we've been able to. So we have a setup that we were able to purchase and get set up for the festival. So again, putting on a tea festival, you have to have good water.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, that's an interesting challenge that I think a lot of people probably don't even think about.
Well, it's something you wouldn't even. Yeah. I would never have even considered it.
Water and power.
Water and power. Yes. We went to France a number of years ago and spent some time in the south of France, and then we went up to Paris and spent some time there. And in both places, the water was terrible.
Yeah.
For tea making. I mean, it's fine to drink.
We could not make good tea anywhere.
Yeah.
And we bought bottled water. It didn't matter what we did. And we finally figured out that we went to one tea shop we went to Mariage Frere, and they filtered the hell out of it.
Huh. Okay.
And so we could get a good cup of tea there, but it was like pulling teeth trying to get it. And so water is crucial.
I also noticed, so we've, gone back and forth to Yunnan maybe 6 times or so now, 6 or 7, I can't remember. I have like my palate is wrecked for about 2 weeks after being on a plane. Like nothing tastes right until I kind of like adjust into the local environment and the local climate. So I've noticed that specifically just traveling can do things.
Yes.
We had a live stream about a month ago with 2 North American tea lovers that specifically focus on water. So it was interesting. They actually sent me some water, a special water that they had put together, and they had specifically built this water and paired it with one of our teas. So we were actually drinking like the same tea with the same water, which was a ton of fun. So they sent me like the concentrate, and I mixed it in the right ratio with some distilled water, and it's just really fascinating how much of a difference water can make. And specifically this water recipe that they had put together, they called the water recipe truth serum, because the idea wasn't to make the tea session taste good. The idea was to basically super emphasize every single thing about that tea. And you could really tell in that tea session, like it actually wasn't even really a great tasting tea session, but like this tea just like, it was just like every single secret that this tea had ever had, it just dumped out like a guy being interrogated. He just blabbered on everything. And it was just overwhelming, especially since I was super familiar with this tea and I'd had it tons of times. Being able to taste it with like the water that they had made was just really fascinating. This tea has a good aftertaste. I'm really enjoying this one, actually. There we go.
It's crucial.
It's got a nice
It is.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, you were talking about the crucial of water. Andrew and Goodman in chat says that there's a Chinese saying that water is the mother of tea, and that totally makes sense.
Oh, I'm just saying water is crucial. That's it.
And for people who don't have source, their water tends to be hard or doesn't, you can get some of the bottled water, mineral waters that are out there, not the effervescent ones, but some of them are very good. And it's a matter, and that's part of the fun too, is trying different parameters and brewing tea at different temperatures.
It is part of the fun. Yeah.
Right.
That's something we had to do. We noticed in China, every single tea shop had a different brand of water that became like their favorite brand. And in China, It's super easy. You push a button on your phone, and like 5 minutes later, some guy pulls up in a scooter with like a new 5-gallon carboy, and they just like swap it out. And so we sat down with all the different water providers in the area and tasted our teas with the different ones. And then that's the one that we settled on. So every tea tasting that we do in China, it's with that water. We actually take that water bottled with us when we travel to the tea mountains, because you never know what you're going to get. When you're up in the mountains, you don't know what water they have, and if you're tasting tea and stuff. And so we certainly take that focus to try to remove as many variables as possible from the tea tasting experience, so that we can try and analyze things on an equal footing. But it's a lot of extra work, but
there's a lot of challenge to it.
So that was a good question for Oxydop Tea in the chat.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
We have a friend who is currently growing herbs in Maine right now. But at one point, he discovered or decided that the best water in the country was in Manhattan.
Okay.
And so he lived in Boston. So he would drive down to Manhattan and fill up as many 5-gallon jars as he could carry in his car and take them back home again. And
just Manhattan tap water?
Yeah.
Yep, tap water.
Yeah, because it comes from upstate somewhere where they have a dam, and it's really wonderful lake or river water, and he thought it was the absolute best. And so he was driving into New York to get water on a fairly regular basis, which I thought was a little further than I wanted to go.
Yeah, we do. Well, you know, here up in Linwood, we've got the that natural artesian aquifer. You know, like Linwood's worst kept secret. We get we've talked to other tea shops that'll drive a decent distance to get that water and bring it back to their shop.
Yeah.
I haven't had the chance to get water from there recently, even though it's only about a mile from our house. It's just too busy, and there's always just like a huge crowd of people. And in the COVID days, I just really don't want to sit around with like a big huge crowd of people. And it's also gotten a little. So I used to I would go like between like 12 and 1 in the morning because there's still a line, but it's not as much. But now there's like I don't know. There's just a big. There's like a homeless camp that lives in the woods there, and they're always like bathing there now and stuff. And it's just like, I don't know, it just gets a little, things get a little squirrely being there like after dark. And so I was just like, so we started doing a little bit more tea. Our water right now is just Linwood tap water that we run through a simple Brita filter. So nothing too fancy, but.
Yeah, I think for most people that's adequate, and it's, you know, just encourage people if they don't know that their water is good for tea, if it's producing good flavors, then more great. I mean, there is no right way that I know of. You know, it's just a matter of trying to allow some of the flavors to come through.
And aroma. Yeah, and if you can't find something that tastes good to you, then try doing something different with your water.
Right.
Yeah.
But because that's the key.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nope. Yeah. No. That's a good point. One of the things I thought that was interesting when I was chatting with it was Max and Arby. Those are names. So I was chatting with Max and Arby about like the tea stuff that they were putting together. Just this idea that we ship water around the world is just seems just incredibly wasteful to me. I know people like Fiji water. Like I'm drinking water from Fiji. I'm like, but you really think about like the global impact of what it takes to actually like ship water around the world, you know, like the emissions on the plane and the boat and, you know, like the plastic and like the sourcing and all that stuff. And if you could kind of get rid of that and work with like your local water and just, you know, source some interesting additives that you could add to it or get, you know, like a reverse osmosis machine on the worst case, but like, you know, like really working to minimize the, global economic impact, and also be able to have good tea. Because like I find that most people in the tea community are definitely more on the environmentally focused perspective. They're generally people who are conscious of, you know, like global impact and, you know, like what the teas are, and the idea of like having tea like shipped or having water like shipped around the world gets I don't know, it kind of stresses me out, but.
Well, Fiji is good water.
It is. I actually, I enjoy it. I enjoy it myself, but I feel guilty. But, you know, that said, you know, we do, you know, it's hard to get Chinese tea from China to America without, you know, shipping it somehow. So there's already a level of impact. So what have you guys noticed in the your last 30 years in the tea business regarding teas grown and processed in North America?
There is a real trend towards growing tea in this country.
Yeah.
And it's been tried a number of times through history. There's the South Carolina group that's run by Bigelow now.
Right.
Before that,
but even before in Georgia. And
tea came here right from the very beginning.
Yes.
And they tried to grow it in a number of places. There are still plants scattered, especially in the southeast, that are hundreds of years old, you know, growing in the woods because they've been
ignored.
But there's now a lot of interest in growing tea in the U.S. There's a number of people working very seriously growing tea. You have University of California, Davis now has a tea program.
Do they really? I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're trying. I mean, this is not a trivial little cottage thing. They're trying to do what they did for wine. 30, 40 years ago, they started viniculture in California, and now we have all these wonderful wines all across the U.S. And they're working very seriously.
They're working very seriously to do the same thing with tea, and they're working with people all around the world,
right,
who are doing research in how to cultivate, how much water, when to do it. I mean, they're really very specific in what they're trying to do, and there are people growing tea because they can and they want to. And even here in Washington, there's a group in Mississippi that is, they're producing tea and they're close to being able to sell it. Okay. I don't think they're ready to do that yet. And I know that in Hawaii, they're growing tea and selling it. And so it's happening. And as global warming continues, current areas of tea production are going to change.
Right.
And so the question is, rather than have it all go away, where else can we grow it?
Right.
And so, you know, since we're all environmentally conscious, we just have to figure out how to grow tea wherever we are.
Yeah.
And tea is a very adaptable plant.
That's exciting. That's actually really exciting to see. You know, I'm in a handful of, you know, like tea growing groups on Facebooks and things like that. It's just really exciting to be able to see that changing. It's really exciting to me. I like to, you know, it's interesting you mentioned, you know, like the California like wine industry and stuff like that, because that was not an easy thing for them to do. Like nobody wanted non-French wine. I mean, like the concept of like wine in America from your plants, right? I mean, it was just it was comical. It was laughable. And you know, you look at the evolution of the wine industry in the US in the last 30 years, and you know, I'll talk to people about like tea, and I'm like, tea in America right now is kind of where wine was in the 70s. You know, I mean, it is it is growing fast, but it's still like right at the small part. And it's interesting to just to watch that, just to watch the growth. And so it's you guys have, you know, an extra, you know, 20 plus years of, you know, like watching the tea industry growing, which is
and it, you know, there are some things, it may ultimately get to the point where tea can be grown and produced productively in this country. But what won't happen, at least not in our lifetime, is the 200 and 300-year-old trees that are in China and India right now that are still producing some of the most wonderful tea in the world. And those have to be preserved somehow. Because to lose those is like losing a piece of art.
Yeah. And that's a tricky thing in Yunnan, to try and answer both questions, you know. I mean, because at the end of the day, like these tea farmers need to eat, and it's really hard to tell them, oh, by the way, like, don't pick that tea, don't make money from that tea, you know. And you know, it's tough, but some areas in Yunnan do that better than others. I think in Jingmai in particular is a growing region right next to Burma, Myanmar, and they just tea is almost like their religion. If there was a place in the world where tea is a religion, I would probably say it's Jingmai. Like these people, it isn't like specifically a religion, but just the way like they're raised, from, you know, like grandparent to parent to child, like respect for the tea plants and quality of production is critical for them, and they work really hard to just do what needs to get done to pass it on to the next, you know, set of grandkids. And some other places in Yunnan, it's a little bit more focused on, like, you know, how much money they can make in that spring season. So it's an interesting, very interesting challenge.
Yeah, and and I applaud people who are doing it. We have a number of plants in our front yard that are growing, and they bloom, and they're doing really wonderful things. And so the next phase is that I have to learn when to pick it and how to make tea. So that'll be my next challenge.
What are you thinking? White tea's the easiest, right?
Probably
make a little white tea from it.
And Doug did some clippings. He trimmed the bushes back, and we had all these leaves, and we said, oh well, let's just
make some tea,
wither it, and see what happens. And so we fluffed it, and we let it sit, and then we heated it up, and it looked like tea. And then we drank some, and it tasted like tea. It wasn't real good, but but it was tea. And so now we have to learn how to do it for real. That's our next step.
Well, that's kind of fun. Yeah, if people don't know, you guys are always selling tea plants at the Northwest Tea Festival.
When we can get them, we usually sell tea plants. Yes.
So we bought one. We bought one our first year. Went outside and I planted it. I was very excited. It was still kind of like young, just a little sapling. And then the next year, I bought another one. I was just like, great. So now we've got there's two of them. That year, that weekend, there was like a huge storm and I came home and like a tree had fallen over and crushed the first tea plant. As I'm bringing like his buddy, I'm like, I just felt so bad. It just, one branch like fell, and just all it did was just take out the tea plant. I'm like, well, at least, so I still, actually, I think about it now, I forgot to tell my brother, and he actually did some processing of stuff in that area, and I came out a couple years ago, and that tea plant was had been pulled as a weed. It wasn't growing really well anyway, so it was and it's just Camellia sinensis, and I'm more of an Assamica guy, you know. It's like
it happens.
Yep. So that was that's my story. That's my story of the two tea plants from the tea festival. So it's nice to know that you guys have been successful enough to actually get a tea picked and made from what you had there. So.
Right. Well, yeah. Farming is a dangerous endeavor.
It's definitely difficult.
It's difficult. You know, weather is not the farmer's friend.
You're right. Yeah, there actually aren't a lot of
and tea
farmer
farming
friends.
is like anything else.
Yeah, that's something interesting that we've noticed from working with the tea farmers that we do in China. It's just like they have got a lot of ingenuity, and the rest of the world could actually completely cease to exist tomorrow, and they would still be up there totally fine. Like they have everything they need is grown within like 100 meters of their house, and I mean they've got everything. And tea's just one of the many things that they grow in and of that area. And I think it's one of the things that makes those teas taste better as well, is because they're actually grown in and around other stuff. It's not we don't generally go for the single crop mega mountain pu'er tea, because I've found that it's just not as good. So this tea's actually super enjoyable. I'm really happy you were able to share some of it with us.
Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, it's a lovely white tea, and I'll be sorry when it's gone.
So do you guys have any interesting, fun stories about the challenges from the tea festivals over the years? I think people might not have known about. I'm sure you guys have seen everything by now.
Oh, the one thing that happened at the last festival was that a woman came out of the restroom and stopped at the table where one of our volunteers was sitting, and showed her a picture that she had taken on her cell phone, and she said, "This is in the bathroom," and it was a gun.
Oh, that's right. I had totally forgotten about that. Somebody
and so it was like, okay then, and got a hold of Annie, who is our volunteer and tech person and our contact with Seattle Center, and said, "Annie, guess what's in the bathroom?" And she got a hold of Seattle Center, who sent somebody over, and they also called the police.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it was taken into custody and away. And I don't think anybody who was attending knew that it was going on.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. They were very low key about it. And a woman showed up at the end of the day saying that she had left something in the bathroom, and she was wondering if anybody had turned it in. And we said, you know, the police have it, and you need to go check it out with them. And I mean, she just had her wallet in her pocket, so she thought she was okay, and walked out, and forgot that she'd taken this out. It was just amazing.
That is an interesting challenge.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No, I remember. I remember now that you mentioned that. I remembered hearing that, but I had completely forgotten about that. I can see how that would be definitely an interesting thing. So I mean, speaking of volunteers, you mentioned volunteers. You guys have such an amazing volunteer army. Like the people that like work on that weekend. What's it like trying to organize all the volunteers? I mean, I know you yourself don't do it directly, but
no, we don't. We have one of the people on our committee has taken that on. She has a list of people and an email list that she contacts every year, and she starts there. And then we have a way for people who are interested in volunteering to go online and sign up. And then they get to pick what they want to do for their shift, and the days and the times that they will be there. And it's getting more and more organized as we go along. And we have a group of the most amazing tea-loving people who are serving tea and helping to make the whole thing go, and selling tickets and product, and running around serving tea and doing all sorts of things, setting up. We have people who come in and set up all the electronics for the speakers and for the tasting booths, and it's just an army of people.
It's about a little over 100 people each festival.
Each festival.
Yeah, no, it's I'm impressed because I mean they do everything from all of that to also like emptying water buckets at booths, or bringing new water and stuff like that, and that's it's nice because I can sit here and I can just brew tea, and then I know that like water's going to be brought, or like the waste bucket's going to be dumped, and it makes it really easy to just kind of focus on what I'm doing. And when I say it's like an army, I mean it's just everyone's going around. They've got a special shirt on, and they're always super helpful.
And it's a good way to participate in the festival. You get to see a different, like you did when you were first year when you were volunteering. So it's a good way to get into the festival, see it from a different perspective, and you get to meet different people, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the background that regular attendees don't necessarily see as much, which you would as a volunteer.
I'm getting a lot of nice fruity aromas from this. It still has a nice like background of like a spiciness, but that fruitiness is very really enjoyable.
It's got a lovely aftertaste.
It does, and this has probably a little bit more energy than I was expecting. At least the way I'm brewing it. I'm brewing it pretty hot and heavy in my ratios and stuff, and so this is a good choice. Thank you.
I'm getting tea drunk.
What do you guys? How's your caffeine sensitivity? When do you guys normally cut off drinking tea? Are we a little too late in the day for you?
Right around here.
Right around here.
Certainly not much after 5.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get a text message from you at like 2 a.m. Be like,
oh no.
What are you guys doing? For a while, when I were doing a midnight tea club thing where we'd start doing like a live stream like at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, which was fun because there's actually a lot of people still up like doing that. But man, it just destroyed us.
Yeah. I used to be able to drink tea all day long, and even an hour before I went to bed and not have any problems.
Yeah.
And that changed over the years. And now I try not to have much tea after around 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I hear you. My window's about 9. We have to be up kind of late anyways, because that's when China's up, So
Yeah, right.
working on this, international schedule, a lot of our work is done. Well, actually, a lot of our work is done is once we can put the kids to bed. So that's like about like 8:30 or 9 or something. And so then like China's awake and we can work with like vendors and farmers and stuff like that. But like Lamo and I generally find ourselves working a lot until usually about 1 or 2 in the morning, and then that's when we get to go to bed. But you got to do what you got to do to keep the business going. So
right. And you need to be able to sleep so you can get up, because the kids will get up before you might have had enough sleep.
Yeah, and they're definitely thankfully our kids actually really enjoy sleeping, and they sleep a decent amount, and so that is a blessing in and of itself.
Yes, it is. Enjoy it.
I know I am, because for the first couple of years for both of them, they were it was well, I mean, you've got kids and ran businesses and stuff. You know what the challenges of that stuff are.
It's a lot of work.
A lot of work.
You don't think about it before you start doing it, and then all of a sudden there you are, and there they are.
Well, I did poke into chat to see if anybody has any questions, but like I don't know, where are you guys at? Where are you guys at in chat? Anybody got anything to ask about? Curious about tea festivals or tea businesses? I guess everyone's just enjoying a nice Saturday afternoon tea.
They're all mellowed out. Yep.
Oh no, this has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed this tea. This was a good choice. Oh, well, we got a message from one guy. It's 2 a.m. Well, where that's got to be. You got to be somewhere in Europe, or maybe Eastern Europe. Is that where's Abkin? Where are you at? That it's 2 a.m. and they're still drinking tea at 2 a.m.
Okay.
They say that they actually some Amanjuan tea from us. That's nice. It's a good choice. They say they sleep better after some tea. I've noticed that with my brother as well. Interesting. I mean, my brother was he was a Marine. He was actually deployed twice into Iraq during really, really, really tough stuff. Came back with a lot of like PTSD and sleep issues. And this was right around the same time that we were starting this tea business. And of course, I was giving all my friends and family like tea and stuff. He came to me like about a month afterwards, and he's like, "Dude, after I drink your tea," he's like, "I can just go to sleep." And I'm like, I just thought that was really awesome that he was able to still able to use it therapeutically. So he'll drink pu'er tea in the evening, and then really helps him to get some good solid rest. So it's interesting how tea can work differently for different people.
Yep.
I mean, we do. As a business that sells tea, we have to be a little bit careful about, like medical claims in tea, and the FDA.
Right.
The FDA is really serious about that. I mean, they, if you start attributing like medical claims to things that have not been, like proven through the FDA, like they can shut you down. That's serious. And so we just take the approach of, people have access to the internet. They can ask whatever tea questions, health-related questions they want. They can come up with their own answers. But we just all we do is sell a tasty beverage. So that's all the FDA allows me to do. So, but it's actually good, because in China, I mean, these teas are sold almost the way you used to sell like snake oil, in the Wild West. I mean, they're not actually sold for their flavor and taste as much as they are. I mean, I'm talking from like the marketing perspective of it, because they are certainly sold for taste and flavor and stuff. But like there's just a laundry list of like things that it's guaranteed to cure. Like that's like given first, and then the tea's almost second, especially for pu'er, because pu'er still kind of has like that mythical status. So it'll definitely cures baldness, you lose weight, like cures cancer, but only if it's like the really good stuff from like that company. Because then the other stuff is going to be bad for you because it was stored wrong and things like that. So
we had people coming into the tea room asking all sorts of interesting questions that do you have, I want the tea that I can lose weight on, or I want the anti-cancer tea. And we had to say, tell me what you want and I will be able to sell it to you, but I don't have a particular tea that is going to prevent cancer or cure it or help you lose weight.
Yeah.
You just can't do it.
We had to do a lot of the same things. I get a lot of emails from people a lot of times. They're like, these are my health issues. What's the tea to which of your teas is going to do with that? And they're kind of upset when I tell them I can't do that. Like I'm
not a doctor.
Like I'm not a doctor. So like I sell a tasty beverage. So if you tell me like what flavors and aromas you're looking for, like I can work towards finding a tea that'll do that, and then encourage them to make their own decisions. And it's funny because like the marketing in China is always with the caveat of as part of a healthy lifestyle, right? So it's just like, well, yes, absolutely. If you have a healthy lifestyle. We do have somebody still drinking tea in Poland. It's 1:10 in the morning. So it's nice. We've got some. It's kind of fun to be able to do these live streams because we get people from around the world. I do a morning live stream when I can wake up for it. Usually between like 9 and 9:30 on Mondays. Monday mornings I call it my morning maucha. And that's nice because I get to interface with everybody who's just getting off of work in the Middle East or like in Europe, and so that's kind of fun to get to see some different customers and things like that. So
that's great.
It's kind of fun to have an international, being able to run a business online and have customers around the world. It's excited to see people who come in from different places and things like that. Mm-hmm. So, well, I mean, you guys probably had a lot of similar stuff. I mean, being like tourist focused in the summertime, probably getting a lot of people from around the world coming in.
Of people who would come through in the summer, and then they would go home, and they would call back and order tea.
Okay,
they
so
would
you guys
take some tea home with them.
So you guys,
and then they would order it online, and so it helped us increase our customer base, and it was a really fun thing. And then they would come back again. So there were some people who came every summer.
Okay.
And they would always stop by.
That's
and
kind of
say
fun.
Hi, and then they'd order from us throughout the year. So that was really cool. We made friends that way.
That's actually
that
really
was
cool.
really fun.
That's a really fun part of being able to see like that just the repetitive nature of it, and just being able to make friends that way. So we've actually done the same thing. I've got people message me like, hey, I'm in Austria, if you're ever here, just like stop by. And so it's kind of fun to be able to have that. I've got a lot of admiration for wanting to actually run a physical retail tea space, because the concept of that absolutely horrifies me. I've got the online stuff down, and I continue to think about like, well, like maybe we should like do like a tea shop. Like what would it look like? Would it look more like a tea bar kind of thing, which I kind of like. Actually, next week we've got Pedro from O5 Tea. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his. He runs a tea bar up in Vancouver. Really cool setup. Very small shop, and it's basically all like one big bar. You can kind of sit almost like you would be sitting at a regular bar, but it's all like tea focused and stuff. And I really kind of like that idea. But like, man, there are so many hurdles to running a retail shop.
Yep.
I mean, you gotta be open, and if you're open, you gotta have employees, and if you got employees, you want to pay them well because you want them to work for you. And you start
and you need to train them. So that they'll say what you want to be said to your customers, because if you don't, they'll make stuff up, and you don't want that necessarily.
You don't, because once they're working for you, they are you, like they are absolutely your representative, and it takes a long time to takes a lot of work to train them, to answer the questions right, and then so all of that sort of stuff just gives me absolute anxiety. So I'm totally happy just doing just the online thing for now. But now even like, I mean, with the COVID stuff, retail tea shops, that's got to be hard.
Oh, I am so glad I am not doing retail. Right now. This last year and a half, I've just woken up every day and said, thank God I don't have to go to work.
Yeah. And that's, as difficult as it's been for, like our, tea business and the COVID and the sourcing and stuff like that. we're still absolutely blessed that we have, like online customers, and I can actually package things up and, like send them to them. And I really feel for anybody that's, I've been talking with, like Lizzie Kate and, Shu Wen from Floating Leaves, and about some of the difficulties of, like doing that. And it's a lot of, it's a big challenge.
It's been a real big challenge for a lot of people. And I know that, and if people didn't have an online part of their retail shop, it made it that much harder.
Yeah.
But being able to ship and having a website that people can buy tea from has kept a lot of shops alive.
Yeah.
Which is really nice, because it has not been easy.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. And so, I mean, it's already such a challenge, just running a retail space. I start to, I don't know, I do like spreadsheet games in my head, like, oh, well, like, well, you start running like, well, what would, like, what would the real estate cost, like the rent cost per month, and, like number of employees versus how many hours you're open. And then you start running, it's like the numbers go the wrong way, and for a long time. And then you're like, well, shoot, like how much tea would you have to sell dollars per day to actually like turn a profit at the end of that? And it's like, those numbers don't work really well for retail. You gotta, it's a lot of work, and you got to make sure it's all set up that way. So I have a lot of respect for people that have run a successful tea business. So retail tea business, yeah, absolutely. And it's like you said, you've got to be flexible. Like you guys started off just we're just going to sell teapots, but then people wanted tea as well. You kind of got to roll with it. And, we've seen some creative solutions with tea businesses over the last year. You got to be really efficient with how your setup's doing, and like you said, like kind of like switch to more of like an online model, and do more of the streaming tea tastings. I've actually really enjoyed this a lot. So
and having a real business, and in a store, brick and mortar kind of place, takes an incredible amount of time. And if you want to sit down and have a tea tasting in the middle of the afternoon for 3 to 5 people, then you've got to have somebody else running the rest of the store while you're doing that, because you can't do both. There's just one thing after another that has to come along, and as soon as you get a new idea, it requires a different kind of juxtaposition of your staff.
And it's also interesting because one of the things that a lot of people don't think about from when you switch over to running online and getting online orders, I spend a significant portion of the week just putting things into boxes and weighing it and putting labels and stuff on there. Again and again and again, you want to be successful. And so successful means more orders. More orders means more packing. And so I was talking with Shu Wen about that. And she's like, that's all I do is I put tea in boxes. Like that's it all day.
And you have to have, if you have enough, I know at the Perennial Tea Room, they have someone who does nothing but fill tea orders and pack them up every day and send them out, because you don't want to wait a week to do it. You want part of who you are and having that the reputation you have is that you get orders out fairly quickly. And people, and especially since Amazon, people expect things in a day and a half.
Yeah, they don't want to pay for shipping, and they want it immediately. Speaking of, I actually will be packing some orders as soon as the live stream's done. I got to go and actually get some orders done. So it's a good thing
I understand. It's tough, and hooray for the post office, because they're one of the cheaper ways to ship tea. And and there's priority mail.
The priority flat rate packages help us out a lot, and it's also like an interesting challenge of like growing the business of like when's that point where you've got enough orders that you can actually hire somebody to do just the orders. There's this fine line between how many orders do you have to be able to actually like pay somebody. That's we're pretty close to that line. We're still like handling it all ourselves, but even the idea of we do have a fulfillment center in China, so we definitely have that. But Oh, we got a chat. Michelle. Michelle's actually spent a lot of time at the Northwest Tea Festival. She wants to say thank you all for the hard work you put into the Tea Festival. It's a great festival. She met her husband because of the Tea Festival and literally changed her life. So
Cool.
she's actually a lot of fun. They we met them at the Tea Festival. They came over and had tea. Her husband actually came out like for the Tea Festival, and then met her through that and stuff like that. And so they're actually a fun local story. And we actually sourced tea for their wedding, a custom blend of pu'er tea from 2 different mountains, 50% from his favorite mountain, 50% from her favorite mountain, in like a custom blend. Put it together, and he got an artist to design the wrapper and stuff like that. And so this whole tong of tea, like full-size ones, it was supposed to last like their whole marriage, but they've been drinking through it too fast. So we may have to do like an anniversary tea. We're actually probably up on their live stream, up on their big screen right now. They watch the streams in their living room. So big shout out to Derek and Michelle. They're a lot of fun, but they moved really far away.
They're not in Washington anymore?
No, they're not in Washington anymore. He stole her away. She used to actually help us do a lot of pottery stuff as well. She does really cool like tea cups and tea things like that and stuff. And I would make some stuff out of clay, and we'd be able to use her kiln for a little bit. So, but she took her kiln with her when she left. So,
God, go figure.
But no, that's a lot of fun. There's probably a lot of stories like that about just the impact that the Tea Festival and you guys have made over the years. I mean, probably countless stories. And so it's exciting for us as like a tea business to be able to start in this area and not really have to put in like the same amount of work as if I had started the same business in like the Midwest or something like that. It didn't really have like such an amazing connoisseur culture that's like native to the Northwest. I mean I guess it's native to the Northwest now because of companies like what you guys have done, even starting like in the like early 90s, and other companies like as Starbucks like brought in like the next level of coffee, and then that brought out Stumptown and Cafe Vita and Victrola and kind of like that next level up. There's just I say it's like a native to the Northwest is connoisseurship regarding like hot beverages, but it's not native. I mean, there's a lot of work from companies like you guys that have laid the groundwork for a company like us to be able to come in 2013 or 2014 and be able to be successful because of all the groundwork that was already laid. So I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. So.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Thank you. It's fun to hear the stories. We don't hear stories, at the festival because we're running around putting out fires and we don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear that they met at the festival and that he stole her away. Well, that's too bad, but as long as it works.
No, you guys, like I said, I never really had the chance to actually sit down and have tea with you guys because you guys are absolutely working so hard at the Tea Festival. I get to see you guys like once probably.
Yeah.
Right.
So I get to see Doug because I have to pay for an extra table. So I give Doug my $10 for an extra table. So I see him like Saturday morning or Friday afternoon, and then Julie usually stops by and makes sure that everything's set up, and then it's done. And do you guys go to any of the tea after parties? Do you ever have the energy for doing any of that? Because I don't.
What we're doing, we have to take down all of the equipment and all of the stuff we brought. Those 5-gallon water heaters that we have in back. And all of the teapots have to be put back in boxes, and everything needs to be packed up. And then it has to go back to our storage locker. And so that's what we do on Sunday night.
Yeah. So you guys, because I get to basically, once I get everything done and move it home, I'm basically done. But yeah, you guys still have things to do after that in the given week. There's a question from Ty. I'm just curious how you like what you've noticed about increasing over the year in the participation of the festival. Like how many people were in the first festival, like vendors and guests versus what we have now?
We had 5 vendors.
5 vendors.
The first one, 5. Wow. And we had
maybe 600.
Maybe 600, 500 to 600 people
Okay.
came.
That's actually a decent amount.
It was a very decent amount. It blew us away. We were totally unprepared for that. It was just a real surprise. We didn't have any idea whether anybody would show up.
Right.
And it was great. And then it's gone up every year. Within 3 years, we filled the available space with vendors.
Right.
That piece just took off.
And then we had to move.
And every year the attendance has gone up commensurately. So now we're at around 3,500 people attending, plus
we had 58
vendors at the last event. And so that's another 100 and some people, because there's never just one person in a booth.
Right. And you've actually probably maximized the amount of vendors in that space, right? I mean,
yeah,
and the last couple of years, as we said, by this time we would be full with exhibitors, and we got to turn people away, unfortunately. And there isn't necessarily another space available that we could move to without making a huge jump. So we're probably going to be keeping it at this level
and
for a while, because
I think that's nice. Yeah.
It's also something that we could, gets too much bigger. It becomes even more difficult to manage.
Yeah.
And
right.
do it well.
Yeah.
So,
and we wouldn't be able to stay at Seattle Center. We would have to move, because we're in their biggest spot right now.
One of their biggest spots.
Yeah. I think that's, I mean, focusing on quality over quantity is, I think, I think it's a good approach, and I appreciate you guys for doing that.
Yeah. And having, people enjoy having it the way it is right now, and changing it doing something more doesn't seem reasonable if we can't do the quality that we want.
Right.
Yeah, because we had, again, the management, we had something like over 55 presenters last festival in 19. And that's a small
army in itself.
Yeah, it's a small army there. And
it's just lots of stuff, lots of people.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's so many moving pieces, and it's kind of awesome that we got to see a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff, and people had some good questions, and you guys had some good stories. There's a final comment here. Sorry they're late. Not going to be super original. Just wanted to say thank you to Doug and Julee for your work with all the tea festivals. So we're getting pretty close to the.
Thank you for.
Getting pretty close to the 2-hour window. You guys have given such an amazing amount of your time on this afternoon, and I definitely appreciate that. Any final advice or tips on people wanting to start their own festivals or get into the tea business on their own? Any parting words of advice?
I think if you're interested in starting your own festival, you should push forward with it. Don't do it alone. Get a group of people. Preferably people who are in the tea business, and like they're going to have time, but if they're interested, they'll help make time, and
contact us.
And contact us, because we're happy to help or give advice wherever we can.
Yeah, there's no secrets, and we've been involved with a lot of festivals, whether it's Portland, LA, Chicago,
where Kansas City, and there was going to be one in Eugene and Bellingham, but those are on hold. And hopefully will happen. And it's a lot. I mean, we're not masochists, although sometimes we worry about why we're doing this. Usually at the very end, just before. But it's a lot of fun bringing people together who are enthusiastic about something, and having them share that experience is energizing. I mean, it's there's
really
nothing
unique.
like it. And the energy I get from being at the festival gives me the push to do it again the next year.
That's awesome. It's I like the Portland Tea Festival as well. It's just the timing. The timing on that is tricky for us, because it's usually right about the edge of when we're in China. So the last couple times we've actually scheduled our flight we get in that night, like the night before the Portland Tea Festival, and we pack up everything and get in our car like that morning and drive down. Or actually, last time we drove down that night, got an Airbnb near the Portland Festival. So I get off the plane, I drop the kids at grandma's house, pack up the kids, pack up the tea. We actually put this tea table in the back of our car because, you know, this little tea table is like, it's like a magnet. Yeah. And we don't actually have like an actual booth, but they give us a little bit of a grassy knoll. We have a spot of grass that's like the Crimson Lotus tea mini hill, and they put up like a little blanket to protect us from the sun. And I just dropped this right down in the grass, and they're super accommodating about that. And so
yeah, they're a great group of people.
Yeah,
and they've been very successful
and done a really good job with it.
They've done a really good job.
Yeah.
And the weather has somehow always worked out. It's a little tricky time of year. And but yeah, having tea outside, it's just it's been a really nice thing. And so for how they do that, because that's tough. It's not it wouldn't really work late September in Seattle trying to do something outside. You just never know. So
right.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I really appreciate your guys' time. I'll chat with you guys a little bit afterwards. But this has been fun. We've been brewing tea for 2 hours, and people have been sitting around and drinking tea with us and watching. And
that's great.
There's a lot of people
for thinking of us.
Right.
Well, absolutely. No, I was very excited that you guys were willing to come on. I mean, I know that you guys are busy and you got a lot of stuff to do, and so taking a couple hours out to chat with people and talk about tea festivals and give us some updates on what's going on this year and next was really nice. And so it's going to be great because this live stream will now be recorded on YouTube. YouTube's awesome like that, and so people can come in and continue to check it out and watch it and. Yeah, it's fun. So I do appreciate you guys willingness to give us some time. So
thank you.
Great choice on this tea. This tea has actually been very
oh, I'm glad you like it.
Particularly
yep.
It's got some long legs. I've gotten 8 or 9 steeps out of it, and I usually don't. Yeah. I usually find white teas are a little bit more. They don't really last that long. So I've gotten quite a number of sessions out of this.
But this is a nice one. Yes.
Yeah. So awesome. Thank you again, and thank you to everybody who joined in the chat for the discussions and the questions that they had. I appreciate that, and thanks for watching. I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.